so I'm going to record. All right, cool. See if I can make this thing work. And sorry, I haven't invented a new template yet, so I'm going to have to live with what we got. All right, fore aft understanding. What is a basic understanding of fore aft? And this is, like I said, this is going to be like more of the level 1, level 2 understanding of what fore aft means. We're not going to be doing like the tremendously deep dive into how it affects our other fundamentals. We'll be saving that into when we start talking about it next weekend, because there's obviously interplay between this fundamental and all the other fundamentals in terms of, you know, how does it affect like edging and rotation, as well as certainly ski to ski and basically, you know, the other one, which is regulating and managing pressure when, you know, between ski and snow. So I'm glad I could spit that all out. All right, so let's just get started. All right, and this is the fundamental as it's written in stone. Control the relationship to the center of mass to the base of support to direct pressure along the length of the skis. Cool. Is everybody familiar with this one? I always kind of look at this fundamental like all the fundamentals. I think it's got 2 parts. You're controlling the relationship, the center mass to the base of support, and then we're directing pressure along the length of the skis. It's more evident in the other fundamentals, but I still think it's 2 parts. So, and this is the kind of the round robin discussion part. What does that mean to you guys? If you can feel free to talk about it popcorn style. If anybody wants to go ahead and say something, go ahead and do that.
So as one is traveling in 3 dimensions, your center of mass is such that you're properly balanced and can direct, I'm going to quote the fundamental, and can direct pressure along the length of that ski, cool. Not just one portion of it. But I think that the salient point, at least for me, is you're moving in 3 dimensions. You're moving in space.
Right.
And you've got to control somehow. We won't say how, but you've got to control somehow that center of mass so that it's supported properly, so that you're in balance at all times.
I think the key word that you keep saying and you're repeating is balance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to balance as our bodies are in motion. So this is just a way to get the skis underneath us so that we don't fall down, right? Okay. Now, I like to equate this kind of like rollerblading, because rollerblading, the platform is not very long. And my ability to move forward and backward is somewhat limited, but I still think it's very, very relevant, because in my experience, the movement along the length of the ski is almost as limited as the movement along the length of the rollerblade. You know, you're only moving a little distance. You're not moving a whole lot. So what body parts are we talking about? Catherine, what body parts are we talking about?
Well, I'm just looking at the picture and I think of more fore aft, which is part of the theme, and where you want to put that fore aft. This person's going straight, but you need that fore aft along with inclination at certain parts of the turn.
Yeah. Yeah,
to
we're going
put
to
that
kind of
pressure, direct
pressure. We're going to kind of silo it this week. Next week, we'll definitely start talking about it in terms of other relationships between other fundamentals, because they are kind of like a mishmash. But this week, we're just going to talk about movement. So when we're doing our foreaft movements, what body parts are we really specifically talking about?
I would say again, you said use popcorn, and I'm like, that's kind of a, she looks like she's kind of popping up and down, and
Right.
that's putting pressure down, but it's also moving fore and aft.
Yeah, cool. All right, anybody else? Noriko?
Then I can go into that. I'm going to put two material on the chat to answer that big question. One is a PSIA magazine article
Oh, you're just mean.
called Women, what is it? Teaching Women or something, Women Skiing. And that one clearly have the answer that you're looking for. There's in the article, really short, they said there are 5 things that women got to be thinking when we are skiing. And number 1 is
Only 5?
yes.
I thought women were able to do at least 10 or more. Isn't that their superpower?
Come on. So,
Hey,
it's
guys only think about 1 or 2 things, and one of them is always the same.
so Lisa Densmore is talking about, well, first we got to flex our ankle. And you can see the women in the middle have more ankle flexion. Now, in terms of this flexing ankle, you may come across with some of our peers or even like trainers who get into too much of the anatomy and kinesiology terms. Our ankles actually flex both ways. And the way we think it's flexing, the toes coming closer to our shin is called dorsiflex. And then those toes going away from your shin bone and it's ballerina toe, that is called plantarflexion.
Okay.
And I noticed that some trainers going to really picky on this, which I feel like, come on, it's bending the ankles and pointing, point and flex. But I just wanted to clarify, just in case some of us want to be correct in these terms of anatomy.
Yeah.
But going back to this article, I just put it in the chat. Lisa meant to say making dorsiflex. So in your ski boots, your shin bone comes forward to the tongue of the boots. So that should be, if you open the next one, the work doc, and see the top picture.
We're going to get to that one. That's
Yeah, we're going to get to that later.
Yeah, we're going to get to that later.
Okay, but what it is,
because I think that's extremely relevant.
Fore-aft balance should come from us flexing the ankles, at least for the step 1. You got to control your ankles and foot movement. At least try to do that from as a step 1.
Yeah.
And then when, ski boots, there's a limit of how much we can flex our ankles. And then it goes to, we got to bend other joints to control this balance, like knee joints, hip joints, just about there. That's probably technically those 3 places: ankle, knees, and hip.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Does everybody agree with that?
Agreed.
Agreed. Amanda,
Then
can you
you
speak
can
yet?
see this picture that her hands are coming like, her arm position changes accordingly so that we can stay in balance.
Yeah.
That's also in Lisa's article.
Oh,
Did
good.
you
We
put
got
the
Rebecca.
article on the chat?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
she's
can't-
got it in chat. If you
I
don't
couldn't
you
get
go
see
it,
to
it.
chat, you can download it.
yeah, I will definitely include it in our kind of a post-game review when I put the link out, and I'll put the slides out too. So, hey, Rebecca, how you doing?
Hi, okay, sorry I'm late.
No, that's all right. You haven't missed much. We're kind of getting reacquainted again. So we're just, right now, we're just kind of spitballing what fore-aft balance means. What does that mean to you? I mean, you can kind of read the sign. What is your understanding of the fundamental, and what body parts are we talking about? So what do you think about when you think about fore-aft, Rebecca?
Essentially that you're balanced over the whole ski,
Mhm.
or depending on where you are in the turn, over the front or the back of the ski.
Cool. So that kind of dovetails right into what AJ was saying with about balance, right? Like it. Cool. Let's move on. What does the technical manual say? And I think you're gonna see a lot of what Noriko was talking about in this. And the technical manual specifically says fore-aft movement of the center of mass is most effective when it originates and controlled by flexing and extending the ankle. So that is that dorsiflexion and plantarflexion.
I guess, yeah.
Yes.
So
Plantar is the ballerina on the
dorsiflexions,
toes.
dorsiflexions when you pull your foot up towards your shin bone, and plantar flexion is when you push down into with your toes, or more specifically the forebody of your foot. Okay.
Yeah, like ballerinas doing another plantar flexion.
So I'm gonna ask you a quick question, Noriko.
Maybe not.
Ballerinas. Yeah, well, I don't know. I think
Ballerinas do both. But
Well,
when they are up on the toes, that's plantar flexion.
that's plantar flexion, yes.
that's about as flexed as you can get to be on your toes.
So let me ask real quick. As much as possible, the fore-aft movements of the center of mass and adjustments of pressure should be controlled by the ankles first. Then, I think, Noriko, you said this almost verbatim, right? Then complemented by movements in the rest of the body, the knees, the hips, and the upper body, right?
Right.
Right. I think the big reason why they really kind of say it this way is, hey man, the joint that's closest to the ground, to the skis, are the ankle joints. And yeah, you can flex your knees and it will change your relationship, but it's way slower. And then as their hips are even further away from the skis, and changing that relationship is even slower. And then any upper body movements that you do are going to be the slowest, right?
Well, also the manual really focuses on skiing from, like from the snow up, or from the skis up, kind of like what Ron LeMaster's course was, skiing from the skis up.
Skis
So
up, yeah.
the ankles and the feet and the ankles are the closest to the skis that you can get.
Yeah, and Ron LeMaster would say the same thing, which is, hey, that's the closest it is, the more relationship you're going to have that you can change quicker than the farther away you are from the skis. Did I say that terribly? Let me say it a little bit differently. Because the ankles are so close, you could change your ability to moving the center of mass on the skis, or changing the base of support relationship to the center of mass much more quickly through the ankles.
Well, I
Right?
would say the easiest way is to start initiating the movement with the ankles, or like you said, the ankles first, and then move up in the body.
Sure. Because we're still going to be using the other body, because we're still in motion, right? We're moving through space, as AJ likes to say. And there's always constant movement and constant changes to our center of mass, so that we can remain, what's the ultimate outcome? To remain balanced over our skis. Mhm. Any questions so far?
So is this where you give the example of your wrist, that it goes all the way around too? I'd like to use that in teaching. Because I think telling people to bend their knees, the ankle part in those, it's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the question.
For
I was gonna-
beginners, for never evers. It's like, do they really know what's going on under that boot that feels so tight?
So the question I always like to ask is, when we're trying to get more forward or try to put more pressure on the front of the boot, which which movement are we trying to adopt the most? Is it going to be plantar flexion or is it going to be dorsiflexion?
I think dorsiflexion. If you're trying to get in front of the boot, is pure dorsiflexion. Unless you're like on a mogul and kind of pushing your skis down from the top of the mogul.
Okay. What do you think, AJ? Oh, you're on mute.
Apologies. Ask the question again because I'm not sure I understand the intent of the question.
If you're trying to get your center of mass more forward over your base support, would you use more dorsiflexion or plantar flexion?
Trick question.
Yeah, it is.
That's why I wanted you to clarify, because I knew where you're going with it.
Okay,
Depends. The answer is it depends.
it depends.
It depends upon what is.
Yeah.
It depends upon what you're trying to do, where you are in the turn, where you are in space, what it is you are trying to do.
I'm gonna suggest that dorsiflexion probably takes pressure off the front of the foot or off the front of the skis and puts it more in the heel. And I'm gonna suggest that plantar flexion would put more pressure on the front of the ski and less on the tails
And
as you're moving through space.
Again, what we're talking about here is if you will, a downhill or a flat run.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm saying it depends. If, to Rebecca's point, or another example might be, if you are in a half pipe, if you're coming up over a ridge in the snow, then there is the opportunity to dorsiflex and keep your center of mass over your skis, over the center of your skis. So that's why I said it depends upon what it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, I think,
on a straight run or going down the hill, agree. You're probably better off with more plantar flexion.
but it's
Right?
we're all talking
sorry.
about we're talking
With
about degrees
dorsiflexion.
of
Sorry, dorsiflexion.
dorsiflexion. I think there's
But-
degrees of movement we're talking about too, right? We're not talking about like totally dorsiflex, and we're not talking about totally plantar flexed. We're kind of in that jiggly movement in the middle, right?
Right, but you're still
Yeah.
talking about making a relatively straight run. If you're coming up, let's say you're going up a half pipe wall,
Yeah.
then that's different. Coming up, opening up your ankles, pivoting, coming down.
Mhm.
Your ankles are open here, and you're probably plantar flexed to keep yourself over your skis, over the top of your skis. So that's what I'm just saying. It depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, it
But
depends on
for
what you're
straight
trying to
run,
do.
agree.
I think sometimes we get a little hung up on the plantar flex and dorsiflex thing. That's the whole point that I'm saying is because we're only talking about a very small amount of movement, right? I mean, yeah, we want to have our, well, we'll talk about that here in a second, okay? So what does it look like? So this is supposed to be like the perfect example of what a skier looks like. Maintains
like-
forward lean. Again, this is from the technical manual. Skier's posture maintains forward lean relative to speed, terrain, and conditions. Ankle flex lower leg. Angle matches the angle of the spine. And then, of course, we're looking at, these are kind of like reference points that we're looking at. And then, of course, we're looking at the reference of where the ski kind of bends. And bending is a relative term, right? I mean, sometimes we don't see where the ski bends. We just kind of take a good guess based on what we see, what the body is doing. Because body is, the body is the cause and the skis are the effect. So, all right. Questions here?
Looks like a picture of Rogan.
It's actually, I think it's a picture of Riley McGashin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's
I think I
not
stole this from his website.
question,
Yeah.
but I just Googled it to make sure that I just put in a chat, says ankle plantar flexion is 0 to 50, that you can't go any more than that. And then dorsiflexion is 0 to 20. It's really tiny.
Yeah.
And this is average. And I remember when we did this in my class in physical therapy, whatever thing, we measured each other, and there was one guy he was over 40 and his ankle flexion was like 5 degrees. His dorsiflexion was 5. Okay. We don't really, at our age, I don't think none of us have 20 degrees. Like this picture that you have on PowerPoint, when he's like forward, he's going that forward. Don't expect, it could be because of the ski boots, but it could be just the way we are. If we don't, many of us have short hamstrings and calf. If we have something like those plantar fasciitis kind of type of person, you don't really have dorsiflexion at all. You have to be like
Right.
doing yoga kind of thing to have this 20-degree dorsiflexion. So that brings us to, okay, yeah, we know ankle flexion is a good thing, but us and our students, never ever adults, may not be able to do this after all.
Well, I think you brought up that second little thing that you have there, the fore aft doc. I mean, what was the most important statement in that document was, hey, when our clients are in ski boots, it kind of limits their ability to move their ankle much at all in that direction, right? And we'll get into the kind of the results of that later on, but yeah, I mean, when you're looking at this video or this picture right here of McGashin, does he look like he's got his shins buried into the front of the boot there? No, I think he's kind of like right in the center. I don't think he's either leveraged against the back or right into the front of the boot. I think it's neither. He's kind of right in the middle. I think the ideal should be sort of in the middle with light pressure on the front.
Yeah. It's like those pictures are deceiving.
Yeah, they are.
Physically, we can't go that far.
Oh, no. Would you ever want to ski like the other two shadows there? That's a crazy amount. No way. That's not balanced or fun. All right. So what does it, and this is kind of, again, this is like these are my thoughts when I think about feeling. What does it feel like? I think of it as in terms of pressure moves along the arch of the foot, with predominant pressure somewhere between the middle of the arch and towards just a little bit towards the heel, like right in front of the heel part, like right here, right there. That's kind of where I think about it. I know some other folks think about it a little bit differently. But where do you guys feel that? Do you ever think about that when you're in ski boots or skiing? Where that pressure is?
For me, it's the ball of the foot.
A lot of people say the ball of the foot. A lot of people do. What about you, Noriko? Where do you tend to feel it at?
I was just thinking about today because snow was sticky, and slow. I could feel more of, like, I could really push my shin bone forward, and then ski sticks, and so it goes back and forth, back and forth.
Mhm.
I feel it on my shin bones.
You feel it on your shin bones? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel a lot on your shin bones or just a little bit, or?
Today was a lot. It
Today
was
was-
a lot of,
Yeah, it was probably sticky. So you're getting a lot of stop starts.
right. So it's not constant. It's more like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Okay. What about you, Rebecca? Where do you think about it?
Well, I think about it in the ball of the foot, but actually, we had a session with Rogan at Pro Jam, and he kind of talked about at the end of the turn, you're actually on your heel.
Mm-hmm.
And then to initiate the turn, you're like on the ball of your foot. So I think that it moves depending on where you are in the turn.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's like you're not constantly feeling one thing. You're moving, as you're moving, your pressure point changes.
Yes. Yes, it does. That kind of brings us up to the next point. Well, I mean, you're kind of like along the line of the moves along the arch of the foot. But it brings up that next point, which is why is it important? And so the movement of the pressure along the length of the ski affects where the skis bend and grip. So as we're moving pressure forward into the ski, which is the one over here on the right, we are making the fore part of the ski bend more than the rear part of the ski, which is that's going to be useful for
Engaging the ski at the turn
That's-
initiation.
Yeah, so your pressure would feel like it was more along the ball of the foot, right? And then as we move through the turn, the pressure moves backwards because we need to bend the ski differently. And you're going to be bending it more in the back, so pressure is going to move back towards the heel a little bit so that you can bend and effectively grip the snow with aft pressure at the end of the turn. And of course, if you have the weight right in the middle, which would be kind of around where the apex is, the skis would effectively bend uniformly from tip to toe. That's what those red lines are for. Does this make sense to everybody? Of course,
Yep.
This makes perfect sense in my head, but it doesn't always to everybody else.
No, it makes very good sense, and this is actually a very good visual
Yeah. Yeah.
And in fact, I was looking at some videos, and you could see that even, Michaela Shiffrin at the end of the turn is got a straight ankle.
Yeah. She gets out of the turn because she's got to bend the end of that. She's got to bend that back part of the ski to get it to grip. I mean, the idea is to get the ski to grip. If we stay forward the whole time and we take pressure off the back of the ski, we're not going to be able to get it to grip. It's going to want to not grip. It's going to want to skid or slide. And funny enough that you say that, because the next slide is, of course, Marcel Hirscher here, or Benjamin Reich. I'm sorry, Benji Reich. And when he comes out of the turn, I mean, you're looking at number 6 here, and you can immediately look at him and say, man, that back part of the ski there is bending an awful lot as he comes out of that turn.
And you could see in number 1 that his ankles are not overly
No.
flexed. They're, he's like finishing the turn there, he's in the back of the ski.
Yeah, he's in the back of the ski, which is actually a really turny part of the ski. But he immediately gets forward because you can notice that he's already moving forward in number 7 and number 8. And he's already starting to grip by bending the forefront of the ski. And if we could see number 3 back here, we'd see it a lot more. And then 4 is kind of like right at the center, right at the gate. He's right in the center, and that whole ski is bending. You can see the little puff of snow right here off the tip. But he's moving backwards with his pressure to get grip on the tail of the ski. And then he moves forward again. And next week, we'll talk about how that works. And then by the time he's got to 8, he's already centered back over to ski again and initiating, and so he can get the bend. Does this make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, if he was forward all the time, where would he have to go?
Well, you wouldn't be able to finish his turn, would he?
He'd have no place to go.
Yeah, I mean, his tails would wash out.
Exactly.
Yeah, he can't grip the tails. No pressure on the tails means you can't grip the tail. You can put it on edge all you want. No pressure is going to help you. Or no pressure is not going to help you. You have to have pressure. And the twisting of the ski is not really going to help too much either. But like I said, a lot of that we're going to talk about next week. How do we do that? Cool. Now we're going to move on to how it's done. All right, we already kind of talked about this. What body parts are responsible to create the ski outcome, the bend that we want? And this is a part where, yeah, I'm not really repeating myself, but I'm going to ask the question of, is it easier to move the center of mass forward, or is it easier to move the base of support back?
That is also a trick question, because either one works.
Either one works, of course. Or maybe neither. It could be that we can move the center of forward mass forward as we're moving the base of support back. Which is kind of
I would say that all of us here always are in balance and never out of balance, so we don't have to move. I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, of course. We're just talking about the other peasants.
Yeah, the other people. The other people.
Oh, don't worry. We're getting to the other people.
So I will just go again, going back to this anatomy and thing.
Yeah.
Have you guys noticed that knee is the only hinge joint if you look at the people from sideways? Knee is the only one that bends back. Ankle just go forward, right?
Right.
And then hip folds forward. The rest of the movable part, we can flex our spine to bring ourselves forward, and then knees, this big hinge, just bend backward.
All it ever does is go back, doesn't it?
Right,
We got to use some other joint to get it to go forward so we can go back.
right.
So they always say bend your knees, $2, please, right? But that's
Yeah.
like the least important joint we want to use, isn't it? In the long run, we want to put a little flex in that joint so that we can shock absorb. But from there, we're not really trying to use it too much because it's if we do, it tends to hurt us more than help us.
Right.
It moves the center of mass back. And then it's a slow joint, which means now you got to move your center of mass back forward again. It's going to take a long time.
I think people use the knees just as a visual for the whole leg. It's like they really don't mean bend your knees only, but like by bending your knees, sometimes you also bend at the hip, you also bend at the ankle. It kind of, you know, like if you jump, you bend your knees, but you also bend your ankles and you also bend your hips.
Mhm.
So it's more to simplify than to really mean that you only bend your knees. Because if you only bend your knees, you're right. All you do is, sit back.
Yeah. I think that goes back to this, what it says in the manual, right? The most effective movement for moving the center of mass originates and controlled by flexing, extending the ankles.
But I think a lot of us don't really understand flexing and extending the ankles, and that's why we many times focus on the knees.
We do tend to do that. That's why I kind of like that idea, that pressure thing that AJ was talking, or not pressure, I'm sorry, balance. Where can we be balanced? Where is a position that we want to be in where we're balanced, right? And in terms of balance, this is also kind of in the manual. You want to be in a position where you get balanced so that you can move in any direction at any time, right? And a lot of times happens. I explain this in my classes, is that you want to be in a position where you can move in any direction at any given time. If you're sitting, and if you move 3/4 of an inch back, you open your ankles up 3/4 of an inch, you lose your ability to move. Well, it's much, much harder now. So where can we get to that allows us to move our bodies in a way that we're balanced and we can move in any direction we want to move at any given time?
Let me throw something out, and that is, instead of saying being balanced, is we're constantly balancing.
Right.
Which means that we're never in full balance, but we're constantly seeking that balance.
That's a little more succinct than what I said, Rebecca. I was saying that we're balanced as we move through space, but yours is a little more succinct. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, we're constantly seeking balance, aren't we? Is that what you're saying, Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. We're constantly seeking balance. But in order for us to move in a way that we want to be effective, we have to be balanced or have the ability to get back to a balanced position. Even though, Lord knows, when I'm in the bumps, I never feel balanced. I always feel like I'm falling.
Join the crowd.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so how do most of our guests move instead? And why do they get it so wrong? So this is kind of like, again, popcorn style. What do you guys normally see when we're talking to our guests?
They let the hill take over so they can't stay face down, and they get in the pocket and yep. At least on the small little bumps that we ski on out here in the Midwest.
Yeah, where are you from?
I ski at Lindsey Vaughn's home.
Oh,
Buck
yeah,
Hill.
Buck Hill. Cool.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Lindsay
Yep.
Kildow.
Yes,
Yeah,
yep.
I had
I'm
kids
reading
that
the
raced against her. That was awesome.
yeah, I'm reading her book. It's very good. Her second one that came out recently. Someone sent it to me. It's called Rise.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm not a racer, but it's very interesting. All her thoughts and whatnot. Of she's going back to the Midwest here, so it hits home that way. But just interesting. She's talking about her family, etc. I'm just beginning few
Yeah.
chapters, but highly recommend it.
Christina Kosnick came out of there too.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
If you go back that far, that was like the
I
late
do.
90s. Yeah.
I do. Yep. Yep.
Very, very good slalom skier that came out of Buck Hill also.
Yeah.
Always
But
loved,
again,
always loved to be up there. I'm a central guy myself, so I always like to talk about Buck Hill because all the race courses they'll put up on any Monday or Wednesdays.
talking about what she's better at because of the limitations that the vertical that we had, that she was only able to ever do 12 to 15 gates.
Yeah.
And so when she set her sights on Olympics, her dad said, yep, you're going out where there's more vertical. So
yeah, where you can do 65 gates instead of 16.
Yep. But again, I'd say our guests, again, all the never evers that I see, they let the hill kind of grab at them. So there would that be more in the pocket, and the skis slip out from underneath them when they feel that speed, if they don't know what to do to stay in balance.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about the pocket.
I consider that kind of back, like the first guy here in the blue.
Right.
He's leaning back and the skis are going to come out right out from underneath them because they feel that speed, and then, oh my gosh, what should I do to initiate a turn to have any control or balance? And they get out of balance. And again, and so a lot of times, again, getting someone to stay forward is easier said than done, especially with the newbies, I think.
Yeah. So why? Any ideas there?
I just say it's the hill grabs them, the fear of now what do I do? Yeah, now what do I do? Right. Where does my ski need to, again, they're thinking about all the things that we're talking about technical that we get, but a guest is not going to get that until they get it.
Yeah, I think you and I have special problems. Like my hill here in Kansas City is not much bigger than Buck Hill is.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is they can see the bottom. Right.
Yeah.
So when they get in trouble, what do? They just send it.
Yeah.
Because they know they got a landing at the bottom, right? When we're out west or a lot of the bigger hills on the East Coast, man, they got to figure out how to slow down and stop. And hopefully they can, right? But here in the Midwest, man, there might be a lot of times where later. Thank you. There might be a lot of times where, because of the hill is so short, they'll just go ahead and go straight down. I made my 3 turns and now I'm just going to go straight down the hill. And then I hope at the bottom friction takes over and I can stop in time before I go through the tables and chairs on the patio,
I thought you were at Winter Park.
Well, I'm at Winter Park too, but I still teach. I only taught 4 days this year, but I still teach at Snow Creek, and I still run into the same problem. I still see them all the time. We call them heat seekers, because they tend to aim right at ski instructors.
Oh, see, that's my rule number 1. Do not take the instructor down. Bad form.
A lot of these people aren't in lessons. They had their lesson right? They got their beginning lesson in the morning, and now they're up on the big hill. But
I can tell you one couple married in was a, I guess we call that a semi-private, but the fear was palpable. And he said when he was a teenager, he was with a school group, so that peer pressure, 8th, 9th grade, whatever, and he didn't come back to the hill until he's now 40-ish. It was just palpable. He, to get down the hill, he thought he was going to be out in the parking lot like he was at 8th, 9th grade. And yet now he's 40, so go figure. I got him down the hill once, and it was just getting him through that fear of, sometimes they forget to turn.
Yeah.
Like I never thought of it that way, that they can see the bottom. So yeah, the next thing to come is either a building, and maybe that'll stop them if they, yeah.
It's like I said, that's kind of the magic of teaching out west, is that there is no bottom, right?
Yeah.
That's also a problem in a lot of ways,
Yes,
because the
yeah,
fear now
well,
is I don't
yeah.
be able to stop before I hit the trees, right?
That or
So I
go
don't
over
even
the
want to
side
get
of a,
started.
how do people teach that have cat tracks and ropes? They don't bring them up there?
No, I think cat tracks are awesome, but also they're a double-edged sword. Cat tracks are very easy to get people down, but they also wear them out very fast. So they get tired very quickly on those. So they don't get as much skiing in. And this is my own personal opinion. That's why I kind of wait to do the cat track at the end of the day. That way I know when I get them down, they're down, and they're usually, by the time they're at the bottom, they're like, oh, okay, I'm done. That cat track was, a mile long, and that tension that they build in themselves wears them out very quickly. So yeah. Anyway, I've got the girl on the left queued up in video. Oop, hold on. I think. Where's she at? Where's she at? Where's she at? Where's she? There it is. Sure. All right. So this is kind of like isn't this kind of like a typical guest that you see, level 1, level 2?
All right, but she's imbalanced, although she's just like turning with her whole body, but at least she seems to be fairly comfortable and in balance.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say she's in balance. She's certainly comfortable, and certainly isn't going like a maniac down the hill.
Right.
But she's also not in the back seat. That's what I meant.
Well, is she though? I mean, look where her butt is. Look right in a profile, right there.
Gotta have my MA juice.
But it's in slow motion.
Yes, I'm going to agree with AJ though. She is back, but the terrain is comfortable for her, right?
Right.
So she's not really being challenged by the terrain to have to do anything different. Now, if you took her up to something a little steeper, I think there would have to be a change in her skiing. Otherwise, she's going to have constant acceleration.
And you're absolutely right, Rebecca. Her turn initiation is upper body rotation.
But why? Why is it
Right
upper
there.
body rotation?
That's the answer right there. Right there.
Why is it upper body rotation?
What else does she have available to her?
Well, that's the question. That's the answer, isn't it? And this is kind of more into the biomechanics of this thing. So if we have a straight leg and our our ability to turn a straight leg is somewhat limited. We have to do something else. This is kind of
Okay.
more into next week, but yes, go ahead.
But
No,
here, she's got some degree of ankle flexion.
Yes, she does.
On the inside ski. Right there
Yeah,
and right
okay.
there.
Yeah, it's more on the inside than the outside, so I guess she's more, and that's
Kitty
why she
turns.
needs to rotate her
Yep.
shoulders, because she's more, she's got more of her weight on the inside ski than the outside ski.
So what would be more effective?
Oh, you took her away from us.
Don't worry. She's gonna
She,
come back up again.
Well, I guess that's her downhill ski.
Mhm.
Again, just the uphill ski is too far away from the downhill. So she's not, that left leg, I guess it would be, is extending way too farwards back. And she's just basically kind of skidding the skis back and forth.
Mhm.
In balance.
Yeah, I mean, balance for the terrain that she's on,
Correct.
which may or may not require that much, right? Kind of looked like an easy green run, maybe a
Yeah.
little bit harder green run, but yes. All right, so we were asking the question, why was she doing it that way? I think you nailed it right off the top, right? Fear. Fear makes us want to go do silly things. I call it our inner weirdnesses. We do strange things that make us move our bodies.
I would say for her that it's more no understanding. She doesn't seem to be like uncomfortable and fearful. I think that if one could have her feel what more effective skiing, I mean, essentially her skiing is just not the most effective. It's not ineffective, but not the most effective, I would say. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So which one of these is that under? Is it under, she doesn't really have a good visual or kinesthetic cue of how it works? Or is there just no understanding on how the skiing works?
I would say no understanding probably, but
Yeah,
I would go with either one.
either one seems about right, right?
Yep.
I think that's the number one issue I run into, folks, when I'm teaching them like more middle levels, is that they just don't understand how things are done. And I even explain to them on a lift, I go, what is your visual? I mean, what do you look at when you're watching other people ski? Because
So-
95% of the skiers that are out there on the hill are not good skiers.
Can I ask you guys a question? And this goes to everyone. PSIA has these little cards. There's 5 cards laminated that
Oh, yeah.
are cues to effective skiing and ineffective skiing. One side is effective, the other side is ineffective. Do you guys ever use those in lessons?
Often. I use them. I like usually look through them. I look through these and the teaching manuals before I go out to teach.
No, I'm what I meant to say, I didn't say that right. Do you show your students, hey, when we're skiing, this is how it ought to look? Just curious.
I'm hoping I'm giving them a good visual.
Okay.
But sometimes
And he's
wonder.
saying to have them out on the hill. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Have the
like
cards
stick it
right
in your
there so
jacket
you can, yep.
pocket.
Well, I think one of the issues with like sort of level 3 to 5 beginner intermediate skiers is motivation. is like, hey, I'm getting down the hill, I'm doing blues, I could do blacks, maybe not the most comfortable. So why do I need to improve, and why do I need to change when what I'm doing is getting me down the hill?
So Rebecca, do you try to change their motivation from extrinsic to intrinsic? Do you another?
Extrinsic meaning I'm here because my boyfriend wants me to ski, as
No,
opposed to,
well, that
That would be extrinsic.
Yeah.
that verse, or what you just said, hey, I can make it down, versus if we try this, if we try balancing on our outside ski, whatever you're working on, it will get us to be better skiers so that we can, whatever, go to steeper hills, go with our boyfriend to such and such a place, have better control.
well, what I focus on is, like, I tell them straight out, the same skills that you need in the bunny hill are the same exact hills that you're going to use up at the steeper terrain. So essentially you need to develop the skills, and what I try to work on, I've tried to like sort of focus on getting the feel. So I'll kind of like do things like, okay, try this, and how does this feel? And try this, does this feel better?
That's kind of where I'm going with the question. And I don't know the right answer because I've tried it and I don't know if I'm flipping the switch on people. I'd like to think I am, but I don't think, I just don't know. Switching from extrinsic to intrinsic. So that's what I'm kind of asking the question. What do you guys do?
I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, that is the number one thing I try to do. I'll ask them, hey, why are you out here today? What do you want to get out of this? And if they tell me, well, I want to be able to ski with my boyfriend. Okay, where's your boyfriend at? Is he a good skier? Is he out on bumps? Is he doing this or that? And I'll try to convert that. I'll try to say, hey, if he's a good bump skier, why do you feel like you're not able to do the bumps? What do we need to do in order to get you more confident as a bump skier? And then it turns from a him to a you, and that kind of gets them out of their shell, and it suddenly becomes their self project and not, hey, I just want to be able to ski with my boyfriend / husband /
I
kids.
like that because I only do the first half. Why are you here?
Right.
What is it that I can help you with? But I like yours because you take it to the next step. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
also will move to, you can be better than he is. You're going to outdo him.
Well, I've had that
So
before too.
let's work on that. He may be a more daring skier, but you're going to be a better skier.
It could be. You use whatever tools you need.
Whatever
to do
works,
Yeah, like I said, anything. I am a big, huge believer in, you have to convert an extrinsic to an intrinsic motivation. If you cannot touch their soul and make them take ownership of the lesson, you're not really going to reach them, And it's the same with kids as it is with adults. I think it's more important with kids than adults, because a lot of the kids are out there going, well, my mommy said I have to take this lesson or I'm not going to be able to ski this year. And I'm like, all right,
well,
do we want to ski with mommy? What do we want to do? How can I make this day about you?
I think that if we get them to feel fun and accomplishment, then that in itself is intrinsic motivation, because because I've seen this, like,
right,
I don't know what I'm doing here, I don't want to be here, to, did you see I'm skiing?
Yeah, like I said,
Yeah, I can
but you
turn.
have to, I try to get them to visualize and communicate the goal. It can't be just, hey, let's go skiing and hopefully you have fun at it. You got to be able to get them to talk about their goals. in some way or another. Their goal might be, mama is out and she's just happy if she can get down that one run. Right? And she just wants to get down to one time so she can just say, hey, I skied. Well, wait a minute. Don't you want to ski with your kids? Don't you want to ski with your family? This might be the thing for you. You might really enjoy this. And that's how you that's where I kind of lead the conversation about you. What do you want to get out of this? Surely you didn't pay $200 to $800 to come out here just for me to take you and hand walk you down a hill. That's not going to work. It's not going to work for me. I get a, what do we like to say, AJ? What's the number one buzz that I get out of this is I want to see the change. I want to see a change in somebody.
Yep.
That's what geeks me out. And if I can't get them to change, then it's
Absolutely.
But I got to get them to change their thinking sometimes. So, any other reasons why they get it so wrong? And I'm going to suggest that there might be one more, and this is kind of along the lines of Noriko. And I'm going to let her talk about this a little bit more because this is kind of like her thing. Or is it ingrained in our body mechanics as a reflex to losing balance?
Yeah, this is the one that I learned in physical therapist assistant school, that this is something that we do without thinking. When you are standing and when you are going to, say like when you're standing and I don't know, earthquake happens. So when you're riding a train or bus and then they move, they jerk all of a sudden, it is ingrained in our body that initially we try to adjust by moving our ankles. If that is not enough, so we know we have the gyroscope in our head thinking, oh my God, I'm going to fall. When that happens, first we try to do it with ankle. And if it's not enough, we stick a butt out. And then that doesn't absorb enough, we step forward. And that is something that it's deeper than our frontal cortex. And I remember when I was in the classroom and so many times being told from ski coaches that Noriko, stop sticking your butt out, your butt is sticking out. And it's like, well, it's not something I could have conquered by thinking not to stick the butt out in this part of the brain. And then what this knowledge of physical therapy or like neurology, what her brain is designed brings us is, so if they can't, first we have to make sure our clients can use as much ankle strategy as possible. He's not here, but Donnie is always big on ski boots being fitted. And we really got to do that to make sure that they put the ski boots right. Ski boots, hopefully not too stiff. And then after we did everything possible in ankles, then we try not to bring them too steep or too fast that they have to compensate by sticking their butt out.
And I love that second thing right there, because this illustrates the best point about what we see with our clients do, which is this hip strategy, right? This is like a normal view that we see all the time, which is they're using their hips because they're unable to use their ankles. And so you watch the legs straighten out and go back, and it puts them in a compromised position.
Right. So just telling our clients don't stick your butt out doesn't help.
Yeah, I didn't put that in there, but I did put in there, I do like the idea of the small force ankle strategy, medium force hip strategy, large force step strategy. And, oh, by the way, so let's go back and look at our girl here. And which strategy is she using?
Actually, she's using another strategy that I didn't put it in the picture.
Oh, there's another one?
Yes, means get the stance wider.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
put that
and
in there. You
she's
had to think about
definitely
the
getting the
balance in it.
stance wider. And also see how front foot is, ahead. So that's like a semi, as much as you can with stepping strategy. So in this way, she has really wide base of support. So more wide of base of support, she will be comfortable. She's supported. And that, I mean, we know she seems to be relaxed and she doesn't show any sign of fear because the slopes are nice and not too steep but very groomed. And then she's using all possible things that she knows instinctively by having the wider stance and pushing her front or inside ski forward to make the base of support as big as she can.
Yeah. So Catherine, you kind of were talking about how that one leg went far forward. I was just, this is like the stepping strategy.
Yeah.
And we see this a ton in intermediate skiers. And you're right. I was saving that part, Noriko, until the next one, which is ski to ski pressure. Because I really, really like that one too, where you were showing how you would start with a wide support, then you'd have a narrow support, then you'd have one behind the other, and then one stair stepped, one behind the other, and then finally to 1 foot. And I was saving that for ski to ski because I thought that was more relevant for ski to ski. But
I
that will pop
agree.
back up. Yeah.
I agree. And when I saw that picture and thinking about it, if I were ever being fortunate, maybe I need to start teaching in like Aspen. We get a private client who already booked us for 3 days. Never ever. I would spend time. Well, first I will make sure the boots are fitted and then spend enough time indoor carpet doing all the balance exercise with the ski boots even before I take the person out.
Yeah, I do a lot of boot work in my beginners. It's boring. I make it like a big game, but yeah, when I'm on beginners, it's always boot work. It's balance and boots, balance and boots, and balance and boots. And frankly, if they have bad boots, it's really going to compromise their ability to ski anyway. And it's going to compromise our lesson and probably ultimately cost me money as a tip. So I want them to have the best boots possible ever.
Except beginners are always going to be, or most of the time are going to be on rental boots or else the wrong boots.
Yes. Occasionally you'll get somebody who comes out. I had a family this year that had all new equipment and everything worked well except for the 13-year-old daughter who had boots that were way too stiff. And her ability to move, well, it's kind of like what Noriko had. The only thing she had left was knees and hips and body, upper body. Those are the only things she could move because those boots were so stiff and she weighed 72 pounds with 30 pounds on her back. She couldn't bend those. She could not flex those boots to save her life. It was impossible. So, and that's a real problem, right? So it'd been nice to be able to go out and take a Dremel tool and open those boots up so she could flex them, but It wasn't there, but we have to be conscious of that all the time. All right, cool.
Hey, Chuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk again. I am at my PC now rather than on my mobile. I was hoping you could go back to the previous one right
This
here.
one?
Yeah, I wanted to, I did pass my level 2 teaching,
Mhm.
and I used something that I've added to the PSIA boot work.
Yeah.
And I actually demonstrated it during my level 2 exam. And it's all fore aft because it allows me to see who are using ankle strategy and who are using hip strategy from point one. So I do this with all my beginners.
Mhm.
And I do all the boot work up until we get them into 2 boots on skis. Okay, so we're still on flats. They're in their boots and they're in their skis. And I have them close their eyes. And anybody who wants to keep their eyes open can, if we've got some trust issues. But mostly I'm teaching them how to, the kinesthetic feeling of the boots. And so what I do is I say, okay, I want you to lean as far forward as you can. Trust in the boots, trust in the skis. And then I'm asking them, where do you feel the boots? And anybody who starts using that hip strategy, because you'll start seeing people just bend right at the hips. They'll bend over from the hips. They won't even use the hips. The hips won't come forward. And the reason I have everybody close their eyes is because I don't want them to have visual cues from how anybody else is doing it. I want them to get there. I want them to have that feeling, that kinesthetic feeling of what it should be like. So I'll work with that one person, I'll have them, bring their hips forward. Some people, then after I've got everybody leaning forward with their eyes closed, then I'll have them lean back. And they're still trusting their boots, they're trusting their skis. They're actually developing some trust for me because I'm not gonna let them fall over as best I can. But like literally by going forward and backward, they're learning what it feels like, that fore aft movement. And then when I bring them back forward again, I have them open their eyes. And that's when I tell them, this is what you want to be feeling. You want to be feeling that shin against the tongue of the boot. So, all of a sudden they have, something feeling, that an internal feeling that they can take with them into their skiing, before we even do our straight runs.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I've never tried having them do it with their eyes closed. That's a great idea.
It's hitting a lot of different things that we're trying to do, not only developing trust and the kinesthetic feeling, but also, they're sort of pushing the limits. They're learning what the limits are of their equipment. Doesn't matter whether it's their own equipment or terrible rental equipment. I
love it. That's a great idea. I'm always looking for ways that we can make a connection between what they're doing and how it feels. And that's a great way to do that. I've never actually thought about it in terms of closing their eyes while they're standing there.
Yeah, I like that. I usually call that the Titanic.
The
If
Titanic?
they've seen the Titanic, yeah, like, how they stood at that helm of the Titanic.
Oh, yeah.
leaning
At the
forward.
point, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Open your arms,
I
Rose.
just
Now
say,
close your
okay,
eyes.
do the Titanic, because
Yeah.
you're not gonna fall. You could lean forward as much as you want. You cannot fall forward, no matter. The boots and the skis are gonna hold you up.
Yeah, a lot of
So-
times I'll ask them, when, do you ever recall seeing somebody do this in skiing? And usually, they talk about somebody taking off on a jump and those skis are, like you got the skier and the skis are like way up. So they already sort of have that in mind of when somebody goes off a ski jump, that they've got their ankles flexed. And so now they've got a visual of what they're trying to do, you know, that's married to the kinesthetic feeling. But I always remember that one because when I started playing guitar, I remember playing on new strings and the strings were really tight and I was always afraid I was gonna like pop one, you know, break a string. And my guitar teachers were like, well, just go play with it, you know, see how far you can bend it. You know, like in other words, learn your instrument, learn, you know, what the durability of the strings are. And that's kind of what I was thinking of, you know, with everybody has their own equipment, doesn't matter, but they have to figure out what the limits of that equipment and their own body with that equipment are, you know, how far they can take it.
The only thing I can think of is a 13-year-old boy leaning so far forward and then popping out of his boots. All right. Back to the thing here. How does it change? How does our stance change? Our ability to move fore and aft change as the speed, the hill, and the conditions change? This is popcorn style. What do
This
you
is
think?
Robin, isn't it?
I don't know.
Is it Robin
Is
or
she-
Jennifer?
I don't think it's Jennifer. I think Jennifer wears Lang boots.
It looks like Robin Barnes.
Robin
but-
Barnes. Mhm. Could be. I don't know. Stolen off the internet. I just said skier in bumps, and this is what popped up. So how does our fore aft change when we move into more difficult terrain?
I think we generally move back, you know, we
Yeah.
move, our center of mass moves back, you know, into the back seat, then the base of support ends up being ahead of us again.
Yeah, so if we're like this
Mhm.
and the terrain changes, we end up going back because we don't
Yeah.
change with the terrain. Okay, cool.
This brings up if can I say a couple things that I learned
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
someone.
Hey,
This
glad to
brings
have
up,
you, Joanne.
yeah, sorry. I'm the loser tonight thinking it was at 8 o'clock.
No, that's all
I'm
right.
in East Coast time. Variable conditions and just a conversation that we're always adjusting our fore aft stance because of terrain and speed or conditions that may change, particularly if it's variable conditions. And there was this exercise, which some of you may know, that a lot of times we think of fore and aft as your body, you know, like your center of mass moving forward and back. But the other way to think about it is pushing your feet forward or back. So you keep
Yeah.
your center of mass centered, and then you just kind of rock your feet forward and back, forward and back. And it's just a different sensation. And you practice this through variable conditions to see how your fore and aft changes. Has anyone heard of this before?
No, we kind of talked about that. You might have been there, but yes, we did talk
Oh,
about that.
All right, sorry.
So the
right,
question
sorry.
was, is it easier to move the center of mass or is it easier to move the base of support?
Oh, I didn't say it was easier. I'm just saying there are two options of sensation of fore and aft.
And
then,
as AJ said, it was a trick question.
yeah.
It's actually easier to move both of them at the same time.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right.
Well,
Because you can
Bob
move your center
Barnes-
of mass and your base
Yeah.
support behind you very, very
Absolutely.
quickly.
Yeah.
It's really hard to move. It's actually really slow to move our center of mass. It's hard to move it forward. It's much easier to move our base of support underneath us quickly. Oops, I can't even see myself. So hold on. Quickly
Yeah,
like this. If our center of mass is up here, it's easy to move this part. It's harder to move this part. But it's really
I'm going to
easy
say
move
for
this.
some people, it's not easy to move the skis forward and back. It's
Well,
easy.
everything's relative, right? It's
Yeah,
always,
I'm going to
it's
say
always
it's
what's
easier to
PSI?
move your body.
They ought to write another book about the word depends. So
Anyway, I love this exercise. If you ever have a chance, like in bumpy or like snowy conditions, to just go across the terrain, moving the feet forward and back, and being aware, just to help you be more aware of fore aft stance. It's kind of a
no, it circles back around to the whole idea of being in balance is the ability to move in all directions. And I'll use that little movement with our skis underneath us to illustrate the fact that I can't do this when I'm in balance, but as soon as I move just a little bit back or a little bit forward, I lose the ability to move my skis like this. And I lose the ability to move my skis sideways too. So our ability to stay in balance is really predicated on the fact that, well, A, we're always constantly seeking balance, and B, our ability to stay on there and our ability to move is compromised when we're out of balance. Cool. Visual cues for fore aft movement. We kind of covered some of them. What are you guys' thoughts? If the ideal, I mean, we already talked about the reference point, the reference angles, right? The shin bone should be relatively parallel to the back, to the spine, or the spine should be relatively parallel to the shin, the upper leg. And that's assuming, of course, that the ankle is flexed, because I think you could argue from the two photos on the right that yes, their shin bones are parallel to their back, but I wouldn't necessarily call them in balance.
Yeah, I think that in some ways these visual cues are confusing, because since skiing means we're moving, our bodies are changing all the time. And if we sort of think about just one position, in some ways that defeats the purpose,
Sure.
because
I cannot argue against that at all. I think you're right. So let's go back to our favorite skier. There she is again. Yay, her. So when we're talking about fore aft balance, what are some visual cues? And we're talking about ineffective fore aft balance. Or effective. I don't really care.
Well, closed ankles or open ankles in this case is a visual cue, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's a good start. Especially when she gets to, she does a better job, like right there, okay? What are some things that you guys look for?
The shoulders.
For me, it starts with the ankles.
Mhm.
What I look for is a degree of ankle bend, closure of the ankles. I look at to see some small amount of knee bend. I'm not so focused on knee bend. But to me, it's the ankle bend that then allows her, not in this case, her belly button to be over the arch of her foot.
Mhm. You like
I
the
also-
belly button? Okay, cool. Yeah.
I mean, that's just sort of a general, because that's kind of where her center of mass is for most people. It's kind of,
right.
no, we're not talking kids here.
Yeah.
Because center of
No,
mass
no.
is different on kids. But for an
Let's
adult
not
like this,
complicate it.
yeah, let's keep it simple. Her belly button over her ankles closed enough that her belly button is sitting up over her arch of her feet. There's a small round to her back. That's kind of what I'm just generally looking for in a snapshot.
Mhm.
And then I can start nitpicking on things.
I'll nitpick.
Nitpick.
Well, again, I just would bring her, that she's just putting too much effort into, like you had said, the train. She looks very like she's enjoying it and whatnot, but she just could have it more compact.
Oh, certainly. But what I'm saying is
Yeah.
when I'm looking at someone, if I'm looking at a skier coming down the hill, if I'm sitting up on the chairlift and I'm looking, in my mind, I do a quick snapshot. If somebody's asking me, does this person have a effective fore-aft balance? I'm looking at ankles. I'm looking a little bit at the knees. I'm looking at where the center of mass is. Is it over roughly the arch or the ball of the foot? And I'm kind of looking at, does that person also have maybe a little bit of round in the back? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that this particular person has this particular characteristics and that's what, and they need to fix X, Y, or Z. I'm just saying, when I take a snapshot from the lift or the side of the hill, I'm just kind of, if another ski instructor pulled me over and said, hey, do you think that person has effective fore-aft balance? I'd say, well, okay, let's take a quick look here. What do their ankles look like? What do their knees look like? Where's their center of mass as they're moving across the hill? What does their upper back look like? Do they have a little bit of round in it? You tell me. That's what I'm saying.
Cool. Anybody got anything else? Agree, disagree?
Then I get into the nitpicking. If they really want to start getting into the nitpicking like we can on this woman, okay, what is she doing? Why is she doing it? Why is her skis performing Z-shaped turns? What's her body doing to make her Z-shaped turns?
Cool.
Then we can start. But snapshot, that's what I'm doing.
What's the next thing? Oh, here we go. Visual, here's just some ideas that I have. Ski bending from the back, snow spray from the back half of the ski. Tips are bouncing. Would you say her forebody of her tip is on the ground? Not really.
Not there.
No. Skis accelerate through turn. They don't pivot from the center of the ski. She's kind of exhibiting a lot of these things. But the
All
one
of
thing
them.
All
of them except I didn't see the bouncing tips,
They're
but
kind of
other
are,
than
they're
that,
not really, but I mean, they are, but they're not, she's not really going very fast, so it's kind of hard to
Yeah.
tell. If she was going faster, I'm sure it would probably be pretty
but
evident.
you could see the snow is coming from the back
Mhm.
and I'm not sure that I can ever really see the skis bend.
I always think that I always put that in because skis tip, they turn, pivot, they bend.
I
Those are
know,
like
but
the three things. The problem I have with all of those is, yeah, sure, I see the skis tip occasionally. I'll see the skis pivot or turn or steer or whatever. Bending is like, man, I don't have that kind of eyesight or something, because bending is like weird. I always kind of imagine they're skiing in 6 inches of snow, and the only thing I can look at is what's going on from the boot above. That's it. That's just my personal thing. Don't quote me on that, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
I doubt that anybody really can say, oh, I saw the skis bend, 5 degrees.
I will definitely pay attention to where they pivot, because that's usually you can usually see where the pivot point is. But yeah, the bending part, I'm with you. I have a lot of trouble with that. But I know if I'm looking at her body, like right here in this photo, that I'm pretty sure, because her upper body posture is so straight and her outside leg is pretty straight, and then she has to shove that leg forward, that yes, she's still going to be kind of pivoting off the back of the front of the ski there, and letting her tails wash out, and as a result she's making a Z style turn. I just know that's going to happen. I know that's the result. So I would look, I'm kind of with AJ. I do look at the ankles, but I'm more interested in the upper body too. I want to see what the upper body is doing. If the upper body is upright like these two skiers are, that's pretty upright, right? Whoops. We got this guy over here. Well, we got old Robin here too. At least she looks balanced over her skis, and it looks like she's projecting her body downhill. And one of the things that the manual says, oops, got it. Lost my deal. Share. Let's go back up here too. What does the technical manual say? As much as possible, fore-aft movements should move from here. What does it look like? Skier's posture maintains a forward lean relative to the speed, terrain, and conditions. Ankle flex and lower leg angle matches the angle of the spine. That top part, I can 100% agree with. The second one, I think that the shin angle could be more upright than the upper body and still be very effective. That where you have more of a hip, bend, more flex in the hip. What I don't want to see, of course, is an upright upper body and then, you know, the knee coming out like this. I want to see it like this. Cool. All right. What happened here? Bing, 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 bing. All right, let's finish this up. Oops.
Hey, Gumby, when you finish, can you put the slides on the chat, please?
Oh, I will. Because they're so beautiful, aren't they?
Absolutely. You're a pro at this.
Oh, you're so kind. All right, so here are some outcomes. Z-shaped turns, of course. Skis thrust quickly sideways. Skis pivot quickly, but not underneath the toes. Those shaping are control or finish or completion phases, which results in incomplete turns. And then in a lot of cases like this guy in blue, it's constant acceleration, right? So this is where you guys get to chime in. What are some cues? This is an opportunity for us to learn as a group about what we do to talk about fore-aft. And let's try to keep it to fore-aft. What are some cues and drills that we talk? I know that Joanne's already talked about something, and I think it was, oh, she bounced on us again. Somebody else talked about something that she liked to do too.
I talked about the Titanic. Is that it?
The Titanic works too. That's an interesting one. What do you tell them in terms of their legs and feet when you talk about the Titanic one?
Their legs have to be straight and they should not be bent at the hip, but just totally move forward like, you know, because otherwise they kind of get totally out of shape, but just feel the shin in front of the boot when you do that and how the boot is going to support you so that no matter how much you lean forward, you're not going to fall.
Okay.
And, you know, I kind of stress with beginners that you cannot ever lean too far forward to start with.
Yeah. That's along the PSIA thing. Always got to be forward. Forward, 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 forward. Better to be forward than back because all of our guests are always back, right? What about you, AJ? What do you do?
It depends on my students, but
Well,
let's say it's a never ever, somebody who's never skied before. Boot drills. One of the things that you can do is you can do just have them walk up an incline. Can be small, can be a large incline. Invariably, they're going to be in the front of the boot, right? Going up. So, hey, did you guys feel that? Did you feel when you were walking up walking up to the top of the ski lift, to the tow rope, to the pommel? Did you feel that you were in the front of the boot as we're walking up the hill? Good. You know, that's what we want. That's what we want you to feel. Hey, kids, You ever jump on your parents' bed and you hear them coming up the steps and all of a sudden you got to jump off really fast and you land? Where are you? You're here. You're in the front of your boot. Hey, 13-year-olds, let's ski backwards.
I like
So
that.
lots of
Good.
stuff we can do to get them to feel the front of the boot.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me when you're sidestepping up the hill as a beginner, and you notice their toes always go up the hill first, and it's kind of hard for them to figure out how to move
Yeah.
their body in a way to put the skis parallel next to each other. That always is like that fore aft problem too, and I'll point that out to them. Yeah. You got to be kind of a little bit forward, otherwise the toes will go up and then you slide backwards. I see that all the time, especially with you.
Yeah.
You know, that 9 to 12-year-old kid. It's like, oh, I don't understand what's going on here. Rico, do you do anything interesting?
You know, after, I think it's Catherine or Rebecca talking about how people feel it, you know, in the boot drill, I was thinking, you know, when you lean back, you feel a little bit, you don't feel secure, right? And then when you get the ankle flexed and you feel the snow or the ground underneath of you, it feels secure, right? So if we could do the boot drill for them to really get into this nervous system, what position make you feel secure and connected to snow underneath of you, that could be really the key for us to teach fore aft balance. And then, you know, once they feel like, oh yeah, this is my happy position, and then really almost flat, you know, place that they could do straight run. All right, let's bring it to the happy place. Yeah, I'm in my happy place.
I just added that
funny,
to balance as an outcome. My happy position.
But feeling happy with the body, let the body know what it feels like is so much more important. Funny thing is, as I was actually cooking my dinner, as I was listening to you, on my television have this Sunday Night Baseball, and Nolan Arenado hit a home run. And the moment he hit the home run, he hit the ball, he knew it, that was a home run. He didn't have to see how far it goes, because his body already know the happy feeling of bat hitting the ball. And if you feel this way, it's going to be the home run. And I kept thinking, you know, this is what we are really talking about in this today, that if we could show our clients this is how it feels to be on top of the skis fore aft balance. That's what we really need to do. Just like, you know, this feeling of home run.
Yeah. Welcome to level 3.
Yeah.
It's making connection between the drills that we do to the feeling that we need them to have.
Right. But you know, you should not wait until level 3.
No,
when we
you
get
should.
a never ever, that should be, because we think that without fore aft balance, we can't go anywhere.
Right.
Right? The rest of the fundamentals won't work.
But we do some of that when we do like we start, or at least most of us start with the never evers with sort of walking in a circle in one ski, kind of using the ski as a scooter. And in order to do that, you already have to glide on one ski, you have to be in front of the boot already.
Yes. And you have to balance over that one ski, right? So I'll couple that. I almost always do that. I do that same drill all the time with Never Evers, where they got to scoot around like they're on a scooter. And then I take them up a short distance up on the hill and I make them try to balance on that ski as they come down. And yeah, you have to adopt a posture that allows you to do that. Are they all successful all the time? No, seldom
Yeah.
are. I mean, you know,
And
I tell
I
them that
also-
I've got 30 years of experience doing this, so I'm probably going to do it way better than you. And I'll couple that in there just to, you know, so they don't feel too defeated. But it's hard. It's hard to ski on one ski when you've never done it before. But you have to be able to feel the experience of the slide, and you have to be able to feel the balance, where you got to be balanced on the ski. Kind of like what Noriko was talking about.
But I also like, and I do that for myself as well, every time I start a run, is jumping, so that you land. When you jump, you essentially land in an athletic stance.
Yeah.
Which is what AJ was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the exercise. Some people like it, some people don't, where you just put the pole in front, you're out of your skis, and you just have them jump over the pole. So they're jumping forward, and when they land, you have a conversation about how they're landing, if they're in balance or not. And how, and I had one student, she just wanted to do it over and over again. She was really getting the sensation of that, you know, control of moving forward, but staying in balance over her boots. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But jumping over a pole.
I'll have them do that before I take them into the park the first time. Yeah. Or doing jumps like jibbers off the side. Yeah, I'll have them do that same drill. Or another one, but this is unrelated. I'll do for fore, or not fore aft, but foot to foot. I'll put a pole out, make them jump and balance on that foot with the other foot in the air, and then jump from that foot to the other foot across there too. That's a fore aft and a ski to ski related activity. And I'll do that with kids a lot, especially at level 4s, where they're still trying to experience getting out of the wedge into that more single-legged skiing they need to do, where they got to pressure the outside ski more effectively. And that's a really good drill for them to kind of get the feeling of balancing on that outside ski without using an outrigger. Anybody else? Cool. Let's wrap this up since it's already 7:48. Anybody got any final questions? And this is where you can be brutally honest. What did you think of our conversation tonight?
I think this was really, really great and very helpful.
Okay.
So thank you for putting it together, and thank you to everyone for their input.
Yeah,
Ditto.
sorry I missed the beginning of it. Chuck, can you just do me a favor? Go to slide 8. I just want to see it larger than what's here on the left. Can't really
Slide
see
8. Okay. I'm not even going to try to count.
Three
It's the
more.
bend.
The
Bend the ski.
bend effect on the
Oh,
ski.
that one.
I can't see the text on it from here.
It says movement of pressure along the length of the ski affects where the skis bend and grip.
Yeah. Could you put this, I just want to see it bigger, because I'm there's a lot of little,
I'm not sure I could make it bigger, but what I
You
am
No,
can't
but
going to do,
just put it on. Go to
I'm-
that.
I
You
am going to put this in, I'm going to send this out as an email to everybody
oh, okay, great, thanks, that's fine.
so that you can blow it up. I think this is, I modified it. I put the little bend in there, but I think it's important because next week when we talk about
Yeah.
how a lot of these mechanics happen,
Yep.
it's going to be really important to understand this bending part in terms of other skills. Cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are
all
we
right,
going to
thanks.
meet next week or in 2 weeks?
No, it's going to be next week. I'd like to get back on schedule again.
Oh, okay.
So, and dodge Memorial Day.
Perfect.
Yeah. I don't want to get in anybody's Memorial Day weekend.
All right, thank you
All
all.
right.
We'll see you
Thank
next week.
you.
Thanks,
you.
everyone.